I'm Samantha Mitchell, 28, and Christmas used to be sacred in our family. Dad would hang lights while Mom and I baked cookies. But this year, I got uninvited from our family gathering by my own father. Why? Because my younger brother Ethan is bringing his new girlfriend to dinner, my former boss Amanda, who fired me last spring after I stood up to her toxic leadership. The woman who made my work life hell is now dating my golden child brother, and somehow I'm the problem. Before I tell you how my own father chose my brother's girlfriend over me, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt like the family disappointment. Trust me, this story will make you feel better about your holiday drama. Growing up in the suburbs of Portland, our family looked picture perfect from the outside. Our two-story colonial with the neatly trimmed hedges housed the Mitchell family. My father, Gerald, 58, a financial advisor with his own practice. My mother, Diana, 56, a former elementary school teacher who quit to raise us. My brother, Ethan, 25, the family genius, and me, Samantha, or Sam as everyone calls me. From as early as I can remember, our family had a clear hierarchy. Dad was in charge, Mom supported his decisions, Ethan was the golden child, and I existed. Dad didn't try to hide his favoritism. When Ethan brought home straight A's on his report card, Dad would take him out for ice cream. When I brought home A's and B's, I got a distracted, good job, without him looking up from his newspaper. Your brother has a natural aptitude, Dad would say whenever I complained about the double standard. You just need to try harder, Samantha. I remember when I was 12 and spent weeks creating an elaborate mixed media art piece for the school exhibition. Mom helped me mount it and came to see it displayed. Dad said he was too busy with work, but promised he'd make time for the next one. 2 months later, Ethan won the science fair with a project on renewable energy that Dad had helped him with every night for 3 weeks. Not only did Dad attend the fair, but he also took the entire family out for a celebration dinner afterward and couldn't stop telling everyone about his son the scientist. Ethan's project could change the world someday, he boasted to our waitress, who clearly couldn't care less. He's going to do important things. I sat quietly eating my pasta, wondering what would make my father look at me with that same pride. Art clearly wasn't going to do it. By high school, the pattern was firmly established. I maintained a 3.7 GPA, was editor of the school newspaper, and won regional awards for my photography. Dad attended exactly one of my photography exhibitions in 4 years. Meanwhile, Ethan was valedictorian, president of the robotics club, and received scholarship offers from MIT, Stanford, and Caltech. Dad bragged about him to anyone who would listen and personally drove him to tour each campus. Mom tried her best to balance the scales. She'd slip into my room after particularly difficult family dinners where Dad had spent the entire time interrogating me about college applications while praising Ethan's latest accomplishment. "Your father loves you, Sam," she'd say, perching on the edge of my bed. "He just doesn't understand creative people. You're so much like my sister Judith, and she's had a wonderful life as an artist." But Mom's attempts at mediation always fell short because she never actually stood up to Dad. She'd nod sympathetically when I expressed hurt feelings, but in family discussions, she inevitably sided with Gerald to keep the peace. Christmas was always my favorite time despite the family dynamics. I loved our traditions. Picking out a fresh tree the weekend after Thanksgiving, unpacking ornaments with stories attached to each one, Mom's famous eggnog, and Dad actually relaxing for once. On Christmas Eve, we'd drive around looking at lights while drinking hot chocolate, then come home to open one present each before bed. Christmas morning meant cinnamon rolls, matching pajamas, and hours of unwrapping gifts while Christmas music played. Even as the golden child/disappointment dynamic intensified over the years, Christmas remained sacred. It was the one time Dad seemed to see me as equal to Ethan. We both got thoughtful gifts, we both received warm hugs, we both belonged. That's why being banned from Christmas this year cut so deeply. It was the final confirmation that I would never be good enough in my father's eyes. By senior year of high school, I'd stopped trying to win Dad's approval and focused instead on forging my own path. I applied to journalism programs despite Dad's insistence that I should study business or at least communications marketing. Journalism is a dying field, Samantha, he lectured during my college decision period. Newspapers are folding left and right. There's no stability, no future. Ethan's computer science degree will set him up for life. But for once, I held firm. I want to tell stories that matter, Dad. Not everything is about money. The look of disappointment on his face was so familiar by then that it barely stung. I went to the state university with a partial scholarship and majored in journalism with a minor in photography. Meanwhile, Ethan went to Stanford on a nearly full ride to study computer science and artificial intelligence. The trajectory of our lives, and our father's perception of our worth, was set. I graduated with honors from the journalism program, walking across the stage to polite applause from my parents. Dad managed a tight smile and a brief congratulations before turning to tell a nearby parent about Ethan's summer internship at a Silicon Valley startup. Fresh out of college, I landed an entry-level position at the Portland Observer while Ethan scored a prestigious tech internship that paid more than my full-time job. I lived with 2 roommates in a cramped apartment while Ethan's company subsidized his housing in San Francisco. Just part of paying your dues, Dad said when I complained about my starting salary. Though if you'd chosen a more practical field. The Observer was a traditional newspaper struggling to adapt to the digital age. I wrote local interest pieces, covered city council meetings, and occasionally contributed to the lifestyle section. My editors appreciated my work ethic and clean copy, but advancement was slow in a shrinking industry. After 3 years, I was still making barely enough to cover rent and student loans. Meanwhile, Ethan had received 2 promotions and was now leading a development team at age 24. Dad never failed to mention this whenever we discussed my career. Seeking better opportunities, I applied for a position at Pulse Media, a digital news platform with a growing audience. The salary was better and the role offered more creative freedom. After 3 rounds of interviews, I got the job as a content creator focusing on social issues and community reporting. That's where I met Amanda Reynolds. Amanda was 32, had a marketing degree from Columbia, and had worked her way up to content director at Pulse in just 4 years. She had sleek blonde hair always pulled into a tight ponytail, wore designer clothes I couldn't afford on my salary, and had a habit of making cutting remarks disguised as constructive feedback. "This piece lacks depth, Samantha," she'd say, sending back an article I'd spent days researching. "Maybe try actually talking to people affected by the issue?" Just a thought. Or, the deadline was 5 p.m., not 5:07. In this industry, timeliness matters more than excuses about interview subjects canceling. At first, I tried harder to impress her. I came in early, stayed late, triple-checked my sources, and polished every sentence. Nothing was ever good enough. Worse, I began noticing that my best ideas would mysteriously appear in the content calendar assigned to other writers, while I got stuck with mundane local coverage. The breaking point came during an editorial meeting 6 months into my time at Pulse. I had pitched a series on housing inequality in Portland's rapidly gentrifying neighborhoods, complete with interviews I'd already lined up and statistics I'd researched on my own time. "This has potential," Amanda said, making notes. "We'll need to approach it from a more balanced perspective, though. Let's assign this to Derek." "But it's my pitch," I objected. "I've already done preliminary interviews and data collection." Amanda's smile didn't reach her eyes. "And we appreciate your initiative. But Derek has more experience with economic reporting. You can share your contacts with him." After the meeting, I watched as she took Derek aside and spoke animatedly about her vision for the housing series. 2 weeks later, the first article appeared under Derek's byline, with Amanda credited as contributing editor. My interviews, my research, my story idea, with no acknowledgement of my work. That night, I cried on the phone to my mother. "It's so unfair. She's taking credit for my work while sidelining me." "Maybe she just thinks Derek can handle it better," Mom suggested. "Have you tried asking for more guidance from her?" "Mom, she's stealing my work," I insisted. "This isn't about professional development." "Well, sometimes we have to adapt to difficult managers, sweetie. Your father says." "I don't care what Dad says. I snapped. Not everything is a lesson in how I'm not trying hard enough. The final straw came when Amanda edited one of my articles about a local environmental protest, removing quotes from activists and inserting statements from the corporation they were protesting against, completely changing the story's focus and accuracy. When I confronted her privately about the ethical issues, she dismissed my concerns. The company is an advertiser, Samantha. We need to maintain relationships. This is why you're still stuck at the contributor level. You don't understand the business side of media. The next editorial meeting, I spoke up when Amanda presented the quarter's wins to our executive editor, taking credit for increased engagement on stories, including my environmental pieces. Actually, I interrupted. I have concerns about editorial integrity. My reporting on the Riverside protest was substantially altered to favor an advertiser, removing verified sources and inserting corporate statements I never collected. The room went silent. Amanda's face flushed red, then settled into a cold mask. Samantha is still learning about balanced reporting, she said smoothly. We can discuss this offline. But our executive editor, Martin, looked concerned. Let's talk more about this after the meeting, both of you. That conversation never happened. Instead, I was called to HR the next morning and informed that I was being terminated for failure to meet editorial standards and company values. Amanda sat across the table, face impassive, as I was handed my severance package and told to clean out my desk. For what it's worth, she said as I was escorted out, you have talent. But this industry requires team players, not solo crusaders. Finding another job in Portland's competitive media market proved nearly impossible. Amanda was well-connected, and while nobody said it directly, I suspected she was bad-mouthing me to potential employers. After 3 months of rejections, I pivoted to freelance content creation. Writing for smaller publications, managing social media for local businesses, and picking up photography gigs when possible. The pay was inconsistent, but I was slowly building a client base. Meanwhile, Ethan had joined SphereNova, a hot tech startup developing AI solutions for healthcare, and was quickly becoming their rising star. At Sunday dinners, Dad would grill me about my employment situation, while enthusiastically discussing Ethan's latest projects. When are you going to find something stable, Samantha? Your brother just got health insurance and a 401k match. That's what responsibility looks like. I'd push my food around my plate and change the subject. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been fired for showing journalistic integrity, the very quality my college professors had insisted would make me successful. Yet here I was, struggling to make rent while my brother's conventional career path was earning him nonstop praise. While I struggled to rebuild my career, Ethan's professional life was on a rocket trajectory. After graduating top of his class from Stanford, he had multiple job offers before he even moved back to Portland. He chose SphereNova because they offered him both an impressive salary and creative control over his projects. At family dinners, Dad could barely contain his pride. Ethan's team is developing an algorithm that could revolutionize early detection of heart disease, he announced one Sunday, clapping my brother on the shoulder. Tell them about the accuracy rates, son. Ethan, to his credit, often looked uncomfortable with Dad's excessive praise. But that didn't stop him from launching into technical explanations that made Dad beam and Mom nod as if she understood the machine learning principles he was describing. What about you, Sam? Mom would eventually ask, trying to include me. How's the freelancing going? Before I could answer, Dad would invariably cut in. She's still figuring things out, aren't you, Samantha? Not everyone can be on a clear path like your brother. The comparisons became so predictable that I started developing excuses to miss family dinners. When I did attend, I'd steel myself for the inevitable commentary on my brother's rising star and my stagnant situation. Within his first year at SphereNova, Ethan was promoted to project manager, leading a team of developers despite being younger than most of them. He bought a new car, a Tesla that Dad proudly took photos beside, and started looking at condos in Portland's trendy Pearl District. I can help with the down payment, I overheard Dad telling him during a backyard barbecue. It's a smart investment at your age. Building equity instead of throwing money away on rent. I thought about my own rent struggles and how I'd been denied when I asked to borrow money for a security deposit the previous year. "We're not enabling dependence," Dad had said then. "You need to learn financial responsibility." 6 months later, Ethan closed on a luxury condo with Dad co-signing the mortgage. The housewarming party felt like a coronation, with relatives and family friends congratulating him not just on the new home, but on his entire life trajectory. "You must be so proud," our aunt told my parents, raising such a successful son. I stood in the corner nursing a glass of wine, invisible. When Tech Innovators Under 30 magazine featured Ethan in their annual issue, Dad had copies sent to everyone in the family. The article praised my brother's groundbreaking work on healthcare algorithms and quoted him discussing his vision for the future of AI-assisted medicine. There was a professional photo of him looking confident in business casual attire, arms crossed, with Sphere Nova's sleek offices in the background. The substantial bonus Ethan received for his latest project was a frequent topic at family gatherings. "He's being modest," Dad would say when Ethan downplayed the amount. It was well into 5 figures. That's what happens when you create actual value in the marketplace. The implied comparison to my work hung in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. As much as the favoritism hurt, what pained me more was how Ethan himself was changing. The brother who once built me a darkroom in our basement for my 16th birthday because he knew I loved photography was disappearing behind a new persona that increasingly mirrored our father's. Our phone calls became less frequent, and when we did talk, he seemed distracted, often multitasking or cutting conversations short. "Some of us have deadlines, Sam," he said once when I tried to tell him about a photo essay I was working on. "Not everyone has the luxury of creative exploration." It sounded exactly like something Dad would say. The last time we had a one-on-one conversation was 3 months ago, at a coffee shop halfway between my apartment and his condo. I was excited to tell him about a new client who had hired me for regular content creation, my most stable income yet. "That's great," he said, barely looking up from his phone. "Listen, I need to cut this short. We're in the final testing phase for the new platform, and I need to check some results." "We just got our drinks," I said, gesturing to his untouched latte. He stood up, dropping a 20 on the table. "Sorry, duty calls. Real jobs don't have flexible hours." He grabbed his coffee and was gone before I could respond. I sat there for another hour, nursing my drink and realizing that I wasn't just losing my standing in the family, I was losing my brother, too. The Ethan who used to defend me against Dad's criticism, who celebrated my small victories when no one else noticed, who understood what it was like to live under Gerald Mitchell's exacting standards, that person was fading away, replaced by a junior version of our father. Thanksgiving arrived with its usual Mitchell family fanfare. Mom spent days cooking, Dad spent hours selecting the perfect wines, and the dining room was set with the good china we only used twice a year. Extended family joined us, my aunt and uncle from Seattle, my grandmother from Boise, and 2 cousins who lived locally. I arrived early to help Mom, determined to maintain holiday harmony despite the growing distance between me and the rest of the family. Ethan arrived just before dinner, looking polished in designer clothes, presenting Mom with an expensive bottle of champagne. "Sorry I couldn't help with setup," he said, kissing her cheek. "Last-minute project details." "Of course, honey," Mom said. "Your work is so important." Dad beamed at him from across the room. "Everyone, Ethan just finished phase 1 of Sphere Nova's biggest contract yet. He can't share details, but it's revolutionary." Ethan gave a modest shrug that didn't quite hide his satisfaction. "We have a great team." The conversation throughout dinner centered on Ethan's accomplishments, with occasional detours into Cousin Mark's law school experience and Aunt Linda's recent vacation. My freelance work went unmentioned until Grandma specifically asked me. "I'm building a steady client base," I said. "Actually, I just landed a regular gig writing content for." "That reminds me," Dad interrupted, tapping his glass for attention. "Ethan has some exciting news he'll be sharing at Christmas dinner. Something to look forward to." All eyes turned to my brother, who smiled mysteriously. "Just a little development in my personal life. You'll have to wait until Christmas." I assumed it was another professional achievement, perhaps a promotion or major bonus. Dad looked so pleased that it had to be something he considered impressive. Whatever it was, I dreaded another family gathering centered around Ethan's success, contrasted with my struggling career. 3 days after Thanksgiving, my friend Tyler called. He worked at a marketing firm that occasionally collaborated with Sphere Nova and had met Ethan at several industry events. Hey Sam, quick question. How long has your brother been dating Amanda Reynolds? My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? I just saw them together at the tech mixer downtown. They seemed pretty cozy. I thought you knew since she used to be your boss. The room spun around me. Are you sure it was Amanda? Blonde, always looks like she's judging everyone, about 32. That's her. She's doing marketing consultancy for Sphere Nova now. They were definitely together, like, together. Sorry, I thought you knew. After hanging up, I sat on my couch in shock. Amanda Reynolds, the woman who had fired me after I called out her unethical practices, who had likely blacklisted me in local media circles, who had taken credit for my work and treated me with constant condescension, was dating my brother. And based on Dad's announcement, Ethan was planning to bring her to Christmas dinner as his girlfriend. The betrayal cut deep. Amanda knew exactly who I was, knew Ethan was my brother. Had she pursued him because of our connection? Was she using him to further twist the knife? And Ethan, did he know she had been my boss? Had she told him her version of why I was fired? Memories of Amanda's worst moments flooded back. Her dismissive, "That's not how we do things here, Samantha," when I suggested more diverse sources for stories. The time she criticized my appearance during a client meeting. Professional journalists don't dress like college students. Her habit of sending critical emails at 11 p.m. and expecting immediate responses. The way she took sole credit for a feature package my team had created while she was on vacation. I thought of Amanda sitting at our family Christmas table, drinking from holiday mugs, exchanging gifts, integrating herself into the Mitchell family while I sat across from her. Expected to smile and welcome the woman who had damaged my career and confidence. With shaking hands, I called Ethan. It went a voicemail twice before he finally answered. "I'm in the middle of something, Sam. What's up? Are you dating Amanda Reynolds?" A pause. "How did you? Is it true? Are you dating my former boss?" He sighed. "Yes, we've been seeing each other for a couple months. I was going to tell you before Christmas, but she fired me, Ethan. She stole my work. She lied about me." "I know your version of events," he cut in, his voice cooling. "Amanda told me what really happened. About your insubordination and inability to work within established guidelines. And you believed her? Without even asking me. I know how you operate, Sam. You've always had problems with authority, with Dad, with professors, with bosses. Amanda is a respected professional who's built an impressive career. What's more likely, that everyone else is wrong, or that you struggle with taking direction?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "She's manipulating you, Ethan. This is what she does." This is exactly why I didn't tell you sooner," he interrupted. "You're always jealous of anything good in my life. For once, I've found someone who understands my work, who operates at my level, and your first reaction is to try to ruin it. That's not what I have to go. We'll talk about this later when you're being rational." He hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. My own brother had chosen Amanda's lies over my truth without hesitation. The depth of the betrayal left me breathless. In desperation, I called my mother, hoping she might understand the impossibility of the situation. "Mom, did you know Ethan is dating Amanda Reynolds? My former boss at Pulse?" "Oh, honey," she said, her voice instantly taking on that placating tone I knew too well. "Yes, we've met her. She's very accomplished, isn't she? She fired me. She's the reason I had to start freelancing. How can you all just welcome her into the family?" "Samantha, that was a professional disagreement. Your father, and I think it's wonderful that Ethan has found someone who shares his ambition. And Amanda has been nothing but lovely to us. So she's coming to Christmas? You expect me to sit across from her and pretend she didn't destroy my career? I think this is an opportunity for you to show maturity," Mom said gently. "These things happen in professional lives. Your father says. I don't care what Dad says. This isn't about maturity. It's about loyalty. My own family is siding with someone who hurt me deliberately. No one is taking sides, honey. But Ethan is bringing Amanda for Christmas dinner, and we expect everyone to be civil. That's not too much to ask. After that unsatisfying conversation, I knew there was only one person left to appeal to, though I had little hope of a sympathetic ear. I called my father directly, something I rarely did. "Samantha," he answered, his tone already indicating he knew why I was calling. "Your mother tells me you're upset about Ethan's girlfriend." "Dad, she was my boss. She fired me after I reported ethical violations. She's not a good person. Amanda has explained the situation to us. She said you had trouble adapting to professional standards and refused guidance. These things happen in careers. And you believe her version without question? Without even asking me what happened. I know you've struggled with accepting criticism, Samantha. From what Amanda describes, you rejected her mentorship and created conflict in the workplace." My blood boiled. Mentorship? She took credit for my work. She changed my reporting to please advertisers. That's not mentorship, it's exploitation. "This attitude is exactly what Amanda described," Dad said coldly. "Always blaming others for your setbacks instead of looking inward. So that's it? You're choosing a woman you barely know over your own daughter. No one is choosing anyone over anyone. But Ethan has found a successful, accomplished partner who shares his values and ambition. Maybe if you had Amanda's work ethic, you wouldn't be struggling." That was the breaking point, the culmination of years of comparisons, dismissals, and conditional love. 28 years of diminishment erupted at once. "My whole life, nothing I've done has ever been good enough for you," I said, my voice shaking. "I've worked hard. I've built a career doing something meaningful to me. I've stood up for my principles, and you've never seen any value in it because it doesn't fit your narrow definition of success. Ethan could bring home a serial killer, and you'd find a way to praise her ambition." "You're being ridiculous and immature," Dad said. "If you can't be civil to your brother's girlfriend at Christmas dinner, then perhaps you shouldn't attend." "Fine. I won't come. Don't be childish. This family has certain expectations." "No, this family has one expectation, that everyone worships at the altar of Ethan. I'm done pretending that's normal or healthy. If that's your attitude, then yes, it's better you don't join us for Christmas. Call me when you're ready to apologize and act like an adult." "Apologize? For what?" "For expecting my family to care about my feelings. For creating drama over your brother's happiness. For refusing to move past professional disagreements like a mature person. For always making everything about you. I'm not coming to Christmas if Amanda is there. That's my boundary. Then I guess we won't see you at Christmas." His voice was cold. "Your choice, Samantha." And, just like that, I was officially banned from the family Christmas gathering, not for anything I'd done, but for refusing to pretend that my brother dating my toxic former boss was something to celebrate. The phone call with my father played on repeat in my mind for days afterward. I couldn't believe he had actually banned me from Christmas, our sacred family tradition, because I wouldn't sit across the table from Amanda Reynolds and pretend she hadn't nearly destroyed my career. "Maybe if you had Amanda's work ethic, you wouldn't be struggling." The words stung like a physical slap. After all these years, Dad still saw me as lazy or incompetent rather than someone who had chosen a challenging path and faced genuine obstacles. During our argument, years of pent-up resentment had finally boiled over. I'd said things I'd thought but never voiced, about his favoritism, about the impossibility of meeting his standards, about the conditional nature of his love. His response had been to cut me out completely rather than consider that I might have valid feelings. The ultimatum was clear: apologize for having boundaries or don't come to Christmas. I had chosen the latter, but the reality of missing our family traditions hit harder than I'd expected. Mom called the next day, her voice tight with stress. "Your father is very upset, Samantha." "I'm very upset too, Mom. No one seems to care about that. Can't you just make peace for one day? For the family?" "By make peace, you mean pretend I'm fine with Amanda dating Ethan? Smile while she sits in our house after what she did to me. Sometimes in life we have to be the bigger person. Why is it always me who has to be the bigger person? Why is it never Dad or Ethan?" Her silence was answer enough. The pattern was so established that she couldn't even question it. "I love you, Mom," I said finally. But I won't come to Christmas if Amanda's there. That's my limit. Then I guess we'll see you after the holidays, she said softly before hanging up. In the days that followed, depression settled over me like a heavy blanket. I went through the motions of my freelance work, meeting deadlines, but producing nothing inspired. I canceled plans with friends, ignored texts, and spent evenings staring at streaming services without actually watching anything. My apartment, normally decorated for Christmas by December 1st, remained untouched. The box of ornaments stayed in my closet, the mini artificial tree remained in its storage bag, and the festive candles sat unlit on my coffee table. What was the point of decorating when the holiday itself had been ruined? A week after the ban, my friends Jessica and Michael showed up at my door unannounced, concerned by my radio silence. "You look terrible," Jessica said bluntly, pushing past me into the apartment. "Thanks," I mumbled, closing the door behind them. "What's going on?" Michael asked, taking in the undecorated apartment and the pile of takeout containers by the couch. "You've been ghosting us for days." I told them everything. About Amanda dating Ethan, about Dad banning me from Christmas, about the years of family dynamics that had led to this breaking point. "That's seriously messed up," Jessica said when I finished. "Your brother is dating the boss who fired you. And your parents are okay with this." "More than okay. They think I'm being immature for not wanting to spend Christmas with her." Michael shook his head. "Your family has a weird definition of loyalty." Jessica helped me clean up the apartment while Michael ordered pizza. They stayed late into the night, watching bad movies with me and trying to lift my spirits. Before leaving, Jessica hugged me tightly. "You're not coming to Christmas dinner at my parents' house," she declared. "No arguments. You shouldn't be alone." But despite their kindness, the dark cloud persisted. I had wrapped presents for my family members weeks ago, before the Amanda revelation. Now they sat in a sad pile in my bedroom closet. A cookbook for Mom, a vintage camera strap for Ethan, even a bottle of Dad's favorite scotch. Tangible reminders of a family gathering I wouldn't be attending. Christmas Eve was the hardest. I couldn't stop thinking about our tradition of driving around to see lights while drinking hot chocolate, then opening one gift before bed. Instead, I sat alone on my couch, watching It's a Wonderful Life and crying into a glass of wine. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Missing you tonight. We drove by the Petersons' light display and thought of you." No mention of the reason for my absence, no acknowledgement of the unfairness of the situation, just a hollow sentiment that changed nothing. Later that night, Ethan posted photos on social media, the family in the living room with the Christmas tree, everyone in festive sweaters, Amanda prominently featured with her arm around my brother. "Christmas Eve with the people who matter most," read the caption. I wasn't even missed enough to leave an empty space. I turned off my phone and cried myself to sleep. Christmas Day dawned gray and rainy, matching my mood perfectly. I didn't bother changing out of my pajamas or making a special breakfast. What was the point of celebration when I'd been discarded so easily by my own family? The physical manifestations of emotional pain became impossible to ignore. I hadn't slept properly in days, jolting awake from anxious dreams. My appetite had disappeared, food tasting like cardboard when I forced myself to eat. A persistent headache throbbed behind my eyes, and my skin looked dull and lifeless. More photos appeared online throughout the day, the family opening presents, Amanda receiving a gift from my parents, everyone gathered around the dinner table. The Mitchell family Christmas tradition continued seamlessly without me, as if I had never been part of it at all. My absence wasn't even a disruption. Just an inconvenience easily resolved by embracing my replacement, a more successful and palatable version of a daughter. Amanda fit perfectly into the Mitchell family value system in ways I never had and never would. New Year's Day found me at rock bottom. I had declined all invitations for New Year's Eve, choosing instead to fall asleep before midnight, alone in my apartment. I woke to a new year that felt exactly like the old one, lonely, uncertain, and shadowed by family rejection. As I shuffled around making coffee, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. Unwashed hair, dark circles under my eyes, shoulders slumped in defeat. The person staring back at me was barely recognizable, a ghost of the passionate, principled journalist I'd once been. Enough, I whispered to my reflection. This couldn't continue. I was letting my father's disapproval and my brother's betrayal define me, just as I had for most of my life. Something had to change, and it clearly wasn't going to be them. I spent the day cleaning my apartment, throwing open windows despite the January chill, washing sheets and towels, and finally unpacking the Christmas decorations only to store them properly for next year. The physical act of cleaning helped clear my mental fog. While organizing my home office, I found a folder containing awards and recognition I'd received throughout my journalism career, certificates from college competitions, a letter from a domestic violence survivor thanking me for telling her story with dignity, positive feedback from editors on particularly challenging pieces. These were tangible reminders that my work had value, regardless of my father's assessment or Amanda's sabotage. I had skills that mattered and principles worth standing up for, even at personal cost. The next day, I called Dr. Rivera, a therapist I'd seen briefly after the firing, but had stopped visiting due to financial constraints. She had an opening that afternoon. Family rejection hits particularly hard during the holidays, she said after I'd recounted recent events. But I'm curious about the patterns you're describing. This dynamic with your father isn't new, is it? For the next hour, we unpacked the Mitchell family system, Dad's narcissistic tendencies, Mom's enabling behavior, Ethan's golden child status, and my role as the family scapegoat. Your father seems to value people based on a narrow definition of success, Dr. Rivera observed. External validation, conventional achievement, financial status. You've chosen a path that prioritizes integrity and meaning over those metrics, which threatens his worldview. But why would that threaten him? Why can't he just let me live my life? Because your choices implicitly question his values. If there are valid ways to measure success beyond wealth and status, then perhaps his own choices deserve examination. Most people find that uncomfortable. We discuss strategies for setting boundaries without expecting my family to change, because they likely wouldn't. You can't control their behavior or perspectives, Dr. Rivera said. You can only control your response. The question becomes, what kind of relationship is possible given who they are, not who you wish they were? It was a painful realization, but also strangely liberating. I'd spent years trying to earn approval from people fundamentally incapable of giving it. Perhaps it was time to invest that energy elsewhere. A week later, I met Jessica for coffee. She worked as a content manager at Horizon Media, a respected digital platform focused on in-depth reporting. You look better, she noted. Still sad, but more present. I'm working on it, I said, trying to focus on the future instead of dwelling on Christmas. Jessica hesitated, then said, I have a suggestion, but it might sound weird. Horizon is running a series on workplace ethics. Given what happened with Amanda, you have first-hand experience with editorial integrity versus commercial pressure. Have you considered writing about it? You mean tell my story? Not necessarily with names or identifying details. But the ethical issues are real and relevant. It could be cathartic for you and valuable for readers. The idea was terrifying and appealing in equal measure. I had never publicly discussed what happened at Pulse, partly out of professional discretion and partly from fear of Amanda's influence. I'll think about it, I promised. That night, I opened my laptop and began writing. Not for publication, just for myself, pouring out the experience of standing up for journalistic principles and paying the professional price. I wrote about the impossible choices facing modern journalists, the pressure to compromise for clicks and advertiser approval, and the personal cost of integrity in an industry increasingly driven by commercial interests. Writing without censoring myself was indeed cathartic. By the time I finished, it was 3 a.m. and I had produced over 4,000 words of raw but powerful content. The next morning, I reread what I'd written and realized Jessica was right. This could be valuable to others if shaped properly. I spent 3 days editing, removing identifying details while preserving the essential ethical questions. When finished, I had a compelling piece about journalistic integrity in the digital age, framed through personal experience, but universally relevant. With trepidation, I sent it to Jessica. Tell me honestly if this is worthwhile or just personal therapy. Her response came within hours. "This is exceptional. Raw, thoughtful, and important. Would you consider letting me show it to my editor?" 2 weeks later, my article, "The Price of Principles: Navigating Ethical Crossroads in Modern Media," was published on Horizon's platform. I had used a pseudonym, not out of shame but pragmatism. I still needed to work in this industry. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Journalists from across the country commented, sharing similar experiences and dilemmas. The article was picked up by journalism schools for ethics discussions. Within days, it had become Horizon's most shared piece of the month. Mark Chen, Horizon's editor-in-chief, requested a meeting through Jessica. "We don't typically know who our anonymous contributors are," he said when we met at a quiet cafe, "but Jessica vouched for your credentials." That piece clearly struck a nerve in the industry. We discussed the current media landscape, the challenges of maintaining editorial standards amid financial pressures, and my background in journalism. "Horizon is expanding our investigative team," Mark said as our meeting concluded. "We need voices that understand the importance of integrity in reporting. Would you be interested in discussing a position with us?" 2 interviews later, I was offered a staff position at Horizon Media, with better pay than I'd ever made at Pulse and an editor who explicitly valued ethical reporting over advertiser appeasement. With steady income secured, I began apartment hunting, looking for a place in a different neighborhood, somewhere without family memories attached to every street corner. I found an affordable one-bedroom in a diverse area known for its artist community and small businesses. My first assignment at Horizon was covering housing policy changes affecting low-income communities, exactly the kind of meaningful reporting I'd always wanted to do. My editor provided constructive feedback that made my work stronger without undermining my confidence or stealing credit. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I felt professionally valued and personally at peace. The Mitchell family drama hadn't disappeared from my mind, but it no longer dominated my thoughts or defined my self-worth. 3 months after starting at Horizon, I had settled into a productive routine. My articles were regularly featured on the site's front page, I had made friends with several colleagues, and my new apartment finally felt like home. The pain of Christmas had faded to a dull ache rather than an acute wound. Then came the unexpected call from Ethan. "Sam, do you have a minute to talk?" His voice sounded different, humbled, perhaps even sad. Gone was the condescending tone that had colored our recent interactions. "I'm listening," I said, neither welcoming nor rejecting the conversation. "Amanda and I broke up." Of all the things I expected him to say, this wasn't on the list. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And surprisingly, I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want my brother to be unhappy. "No, you're not," he said with a hollow laugh. "And you shouldn't be. You were right about her." I sat down, processing this admission. What happened? I found out she was using me to get connections at Spherenova. She'd been feeding information about our projects to a competitor where her friend works. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it, just said it was how the game is played, and I was naive to think otherwise. The revelation didn't surprise me, but I took no pleasure in being proven right. "That sounds like Amanda." "I should have listened to you," Ethan said quietly. "I'm sorry, Sam. Really sorry. I chose someone I barely knew over my sister who's always had my back. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know I was wrong." The apology felt sincere, but I wasn't ready to simply move past months of hurt with a single conversation. "I appreciate you saying that. It matters that you recognize what happened. Could we maybe get coffee sometime? Talk in person?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to protect myself from further disappointment, but another part recognized that Ethan was making a genuine effort, something rare in the Mitchell family. "Okay, coffee. But just to talk. I'm not promising anything beyond that." We met the following weekend at a neutral cafe halfway between our apartments. The conversation was awkward at first, both of us unsure how to bridge the chasm that had formed between us. "I read your article," Ethan said after we'd exhausted small talk about the weather and our jobs. "The one about journalistic ethics. Jessica showed it to me." "You talked to Jessica?" "I reached out after everything blew up with Amanda. I wanted to understand your side better." She made me read your piece before she'd even consider telling me how to contact you again. I made a mental note to thank Jessica for her loyalty. And it was eye-opening. The situations you described. The pressure to compromise, the theft of credit, the retaliation when you stood up for principles, it all matched what you'd told me about Amanda. But I didn't believe you then because Dad didn't. I finished for him. Ethan nodded, looking down at his coffee. I've been thinking a lot about how I became exactly what Dad wanted, including adopting his dismissal of your career choices. Somewhere along the way, I started seeing you through his eyes instead of my own. That hurt more than anything, I admitted. We used to be a team against his impossible standards. Then suddenly you were on his side of the divide. Success is seductive, Ethan said. Being the golden child comes with privileges, but also expectations. I was so afraid of losing Dad's approval that I became a version of myself I don't particularly like. For the first time in years, we had an honest conversation. About our childhoods, about Dad's toxic favoritism, about Mom's well-meaning enablement, about the divergent paths our lives had taken. No pretense, no performance, just truth between siblings who had once been close. I don't expect us to immediately go back to how things were, Ethan said as we prepared to leave. But I'd like to try to rebuild. On equal terms this time. Not as the golden child and the black sheep, just as brother and sister. I'd like that too, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. A week later, Mom called to invite me to Easter dinner. The whole family will be there, she said cautiously. Your father included. Is he aware I'm invited? Of course. It was his idea, actually. That seemed unlikely, but I wasn't going to argue. I'll come on one condition: no comments about my career choices, my living situation, or comparisons to anyone else's achievements. I'm not putting myself back into a situation where I'm made to feel inadequate. I'll make sure everyone understands, Mom promised. Easter dinner was as awkward as expected. Dad offered a stiff greeting, but no apology for Christmas. Mom fluttered around nervously, over-explaining dishes and filling every silence with chatter. Ethan tried to mediate, occasionally shooting me supportive glances when Dad veered toward criticism. After dinner, Mom found me alone in the kitchen getting more water. I'm proud of you, Samantha, she said quietly. The way you've handled everything, it shows real strength. I don't say it enough, but I admire how you've always stayed true to yourself. Coming from my conflict-averse mother, this was practically a revolutionary statement. Thanks, Mom. That means a lot. Your father has his ways of seeing the world, she continued. They're not always fair, but they're deeply ingrained. He may never change completely, but he does love you. In his way. I nodded, not agreeing but acknowledging her perspective. I know. But I can't keep trying to earn approval that's conditional on becoming someone I'm not. That's the strength I'm talking about, she said, squeezing my hand before returning to the dining room. That Easter marked a new phase in my relationship with my family. Not healed, not perfect, but more honest. I maintained clear boundaries with my father, engaged with my mother more directly about family dynamics, and slowly rebuilt trust with Ethan. More importantly, I created new traditions and support systems outside the Mitchell family. Jessica and Michael became regular fixtures in my life. I joined a book club through work and made friends who shared my values. I started volunteering at a youth journalism program, mentoring teenagers interested in ethical reporting. The following Christmas, I had options. The Mitchells extended an invitation, this time with explicit assurance that my boundaries would be respected. But Jessica's family had also invited me to their celebration, as had my book club for their holiday party. I chose to spend Christmas Eve with the Mitchells, a shorter, more manageable family interaction, and Christmas Day with Jessica's warm, chaotic, accepting family. It wasn't perfect, but it was my choice on my terms. The hardest lesson I've learned through all this is that family wounds don't heal overnight, and some never heal completely. My father may never fully value my choices or see my career as worthwhile. My mother may never completely stop enabling his behavior. Ethan and I may never recapture the uncomplicated closeness of our childhood. But I've also learned that I don't need their validation to know my worth. The work I do matters. The principles I stand for matter. The life I've built on my own terms matters. Sometimes creating healthy distance from family is the most self-loving choice you can make. Sometimes building your own traditions and chosen family is the path to peace. And sometimes the greatest success isn't measured in money or status, but in the courage to live authentically even when it costs you something. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family during the holidays? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is as important as the family we're born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope whatever holiday traditions you celebrate are filled with genuine love and acceptance.